Welcome back into Sports Memo's betting podcast. College football, every game on the board. This is section number 2 of 4 sections on the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast with our number 2 guest, Mid-Major Matt. Welcome in, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Trying to keep up with all the sports going on. You know, the college basketball approaching, college football. Hard to believe we're, week 9 in college football already? It's pretty crazy how many weeks we've seen so far.
Absolutely, man. It is flying by, and he's been hot. Mid-Major Matt, check him out at sportsmemo.com, hitting 64% over the last 3 weeks. So finding a bunch of winners here, and hopefully finding a bunch of winners on this podcast for the listeners. We got CMU at Buffalo up first here, Matt. Rotation number 129, 130. We got 2.5 being the number. That's Buffalo laying at home, 47.5 being the total, Matt.
Yeah, CMU's been really impressive. I watched all of the game last week against Bowling Green. Bowling Green coming off the win against Toledo, but to watch what CMU does on offense, I mean, they've got Jonathan Ward at running back. The Dormady kid's really good, and he's throwing to Khalil Pimpleton, the kid from Virginia Tech. So CMU's offense is going to be very hard to stop. They've won 3 straight after a brief 2-game losing streak. On the Buffalo side, Matt Myers, the quarterback, is out for the season. That means Kyle Van Treese is under center. He only threw for 65 yards on 23 attempts last week against Akron. The passing game is ranked 125 out of 130 so far in FBS football. His backup is a true freshman. His third string guy is currently the holder/wide receiver. He's also punted so far this year for Buffalo. I don't love the Bulls here. CMU will have to stop UB's run game, but I don't know. You know, the Chippewa's offense is really good, and they could be a very live underdog in this one.
I like it. We found change at the quarterback position, and would that make you look towards the under here with Buffalo CMU, Matt?
Well, Buffalo's defense has been good so far this year, but they really haven't played too many teams that are going to stress them. I mean, they gave up 45 to Penn State. They gave up 35 to Liberty. Now, granted, both those games were on the road, gave up 22 at home to Temple. I don't know if CMU's balance is going to stress them enough. I don't think I'm going to look at the under, but Buffalo wants to run it with Marks and Patterson.
Matt, we'll head to the Big Ten up next. We got Iowa at Northwestern, seeing the Hawkeyes laying doubles on the road here, laying 10 pretty much across the board. Man, total sub 40 here, just a 37 total. We got Iowa and Northwestern in the Big Ten, Matt.
So this is more like the injury bowl here. You've got Iowa, who lost Brandon Smith, who was their playmaker at wide receiver. He's out for a couple weeks. Christian Welch still not on the depth chart. He's a linebacker. Aiden Smith is under center for Northwestern. They don't have Cameron Green. They don't have the Scarana kid. And Bowser and Jesse Brown, their 2 running backs, are dinged up. There's a lot of injuries here to consider. This game won't be on my card, but the one thing that I know you and a lot of us handicappers believe in is when the total's really low and the spread is really high, you consider the underdog. But I don't know if Northwestern could score in this one. So the question is Iowa going to win like 13-0, 17-3, and something like that? So this game won't be on my card, but it's low for a reason because there's so many uncertainties on both sides of the ball.
All right, Matt. Next up, we got USF at ECU. That's South Florida at East Carolina in AAC action. Seeing mostly the Bulls laying 2 on the highway, 52 being the total, Matt.
So I'm not really sure about this line because South Florida hasn't been very good this year. You know, they have 3 wins. They beat South Carolina State, they beat UConn, and they beat BYU at home. USF's top wide receiver this year is a walk-on, only has 14 catches. It's either going to be Jordan McLeod, who could barely throw the ball last week under center. He has wrist and shoulder issues. Or a walk-on, Kirk Rigel at quarterback. East Carolina is getting close. Like, look, I understand that their record's ugly, and I understand that they've played, they haven't played very well. But in the second half, they came alive a little bit against UCF. I like Mike Houston as a coach. I think their quarterback situation is not terrible. They've got some decent pieces. I don't understand this move. If I had to play this game, I'd probably look at the home underdog.
All right, looking towards the home underdog in that one, ECU Pirates. We got Syracuse at Florida State up next, Matt. Man, FSU's laying 10 at home. I don't know about that number. 59 being the total, Matt.
Well, my alma mater's terrible. We've been sacked. We were sacked 9 times last week. Syracuse was sacked 9 times. They've been sacked in FBS worst 35 times. That's more than both Akron and Old Dominion, who have been sacked only 32 times. On the Florida State side, Willie Taggart's still going with the whole I don't know who my starting quarterback thing is, but it's probably going to be James Blackman. You had the athletic director today or yesterday, whenever it was, basically say, well, if Willie Taggart's hit by a bus, we're not hiring Urban Meyer, which is a really weird statement to make. The other concern here for Florida State is Ricky Aguayo is 4 of 9 on field goals, one of his last 6. They lost another wide receiver to injuries. Neither of these teams is in a good spot right now. I wonder if they could score enough points with a higher total here. Maybe the under's worth a look, but then again, both defenses have their weaknesses.
Matt, next game up, this is a fascinating handicap. We got a Big Ten team catching a touchdown and a half to the newest member of FBS football. And the game I'm talking about is rotation number 137138. It is a degenerate special, so to speak, 9 a.m. Pacific kickoff here. Liberty at Rutgers. Rutgers is catching 7.5 at home, 44 being the total, Matt.
Right. If you looked at these two teams, you'd almost think that Liberty would be the Big Ten team. I mean, they don't necessarily play as rough and tumble as the Big Ten would, so neither of them really are. But when it comes to this game, it's a crazy number. I think, and you're obviously in Vegas, but it looked like it came out at 5.5, and then it got bet up to 7.5. Look, Rutgers is terrible. Johnny Langan has thrown for under 50 yards the last two games. Rutgers is just really bad. But are you ready to lay that many points with Liberty on the road? I mean, Buckshot Calvert, Antonio Gandy-Golden are all-time Liberty Flames. Rutgers may play their true freshman Cole Snyder, but they're also trying to balance his playing time so they don't waste his year. So if Langan keeps being terrible, the redshirt freshman the true freshman could come in. Oh, man, I wish I could play this game because this is like a true mid-major type game, but I just can't. I don't trust Liberty laying that many points, but I'm certainly never going to put Rutgers on my card.
Yeah, and to answer your question, yeah, it did open 4, went over the key number of 7, seeing 7.5 at most places, circa, which I'm going off of their openers. They pretty much do the world openers now here in Vegas. They have gone back down to 7. So at some point, we've seen some buyback for this Rutgers squad. But overall, man, it speaks to where this Rutgers program is at right now. We got Southern Miss at Rice up next, and it looks like 9.5 Southern Miss laying on the highway, 52 the total in Houston.
So Southern Miss coming off a loss last week. Didn't look great against Louisiana Tech, at least defensively. Their running back, DeMichael Harris, is a running back. He's probably not going to play. They've had some issues at running back. Travinsky Mosley was supposed to be the starter. He got hurt way back in week 1, but it hasn't really mattered. Jack Abraham's been really hot. Rice has used 2 quarterbacks. I mean, look, Rice hasn't won a game yet this year. They've been really close. So last week they were, for some reason, favored on the road against UTSA. They lost 31-27. But, this team's shown a pulse. They played a tough half against, I believe, against Texas. They played Baylor tough 21-13. Rice, I don't necessarily say it's one of my favorite plays, but I wouldn't rule out taking Rice plus the points at home. There's not going to be much atmosphere. It's going to be a sleepy kind of game, but they have 2 decent wide receivers in Austin Trammell and Brad Rosner. If Southern Miss isn't focused, then they could lose this game to Rice. Maybe worth a look on the underdog.
He's Mid-Major Matt. Find him on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt and his work at sportsmemo.com. Also, special coupon code for this podcast, MMM29, gives you his 3-day all access. Every sport, every play he releases. College football, knows the small conferences. FCS football will include all those. And any NFL he releases. MMM29 at checkout takes half off of his 3-day all access, and you can get it for less than $10 a day, just $29. 3-day all access at sportsmemo.com. MMM29 at checkout. Heading to the Pac-12 right now. We got Cal at Utah. Defensive matchup here. Talking about low totals, Matt. 37.5 being the total in Salt Lake, with Utah laying 3 touchdowns at home.
So once again, as we talked about with the previous game a couple games ago, big spread, small total. Now, here's the thing. I would probably consider laying that number, but we don't know who's going to play quarterback for Cal. Modster got hurt. He's questionable for this one. Crawford, the wide receiver who came over from Michigan, he's week to week for California. The defense is going to have a lot of pressure on themselves to keep Utah down. But then again, we don't know if Tyler Huntley is going to play. He swears he's going to play. He insists he's going to play. Spencer Brash played the last 2 drives last week for Cal. There's a lot of question marks here. If we find out that Modster's going to play and maybe Huntley's not going to play, then maybe I consider a play on Cal, but then again, you're not going to get the 3 touchdowns. So really, if you want to play Cal here, you're assuming or you're hoping that Utah's starting quarterback's not going to play and that Modster is going to play and that the Cal defense can hold down Utah. Utah, no joke last week. They have a mission on their mind. The thing is, next week, a road game at Washington. That's a whole lot bigger for Utah than this game at home against Cal. Another reason to consider the road dog in this one, but I'm not playing anything until I get some clarity on the quarterbacks.
Matt, just a question for you. Utah and Oregon in the Pac-12, are they out of playoff talk for in your opinion?
Probably not Oregon. I mean, Oregon's got some solid wins. I know they lost to Auburn way back in week 1. Look, the Pac-12 is going to have to do a lot to get themselves into the playoff hunt, but if there's anybody who probably deserves it, Oregon, if they went out, probably deserves at least to be discussed. But I think the perception of the Pac-12 is so bad that one of those teams is going to have to go undefeated, beat a Power 5 school, and beat them by quite a lot to move on.
And in your opinion, is the Pac-12 better or worse than the ACC?
Ooh, good question. I would say that they are. Wow. I mean, the Pac-12's top is better than the ACC's top outside. Okay, let me phrase that again. The Pac-12's depth at the top is better than the ACC's depth at the top. Of course, Clemson beats everybody in the Pac-12 by 100, but I think the Pac-12 has better, Utah, Washington, Oregon, and then if you go Clemson, Virginia, Wake Forest, I mean, the top of the as a whole is better, but the bottom of the ACC is probably better than the bottom of the Pac-12.
Good stuff there, Matt. We got Nevada at Wyoming up next. This is the Every Game on the Board podcast, breaking down each and every college football game for this weekend, each and every week here at Sports Memo. You can check it out on the podcast tab. Also on YouTube, we simulcast it on video, so you can check it out there in the Apple iTunes app as well. We got Nevada, Wyoming here, Matt. Looks like Wyoming, the Cowboys, laying 14 in Laramie, 43.5 the total.
So I've enjoyed fading Wyoming this year. They're frauds. I mean, they have won, the game. It goes all the way back to week 1. They beat Missouri. Missouri clearly wasn't focused for that one. Week 2, I had Texas State. They outgamed Wyoming by a lot, threw a pick 6, didn't cover. Frustrated me. Wyoming barely beat Idaho, who's better this year in the FCS, but their previous FBS games, they had lost by like 100 combined, even more. I think it was like 140 their last couple FBS, FCS games. Last week we had New Mexico. That was a winner. New Mexico's really ugly. We'll get to them coming up a little bit, but I don't know if I can fade him with you, Nevada. Malik Henry's not going to play in this one. They've taken him off the team to focus academics. If that name sounds familiar, it's from Last Chance U on Netflix. So it's either Carson Strong or Christian Solano under center. Nevada has 6 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions. They've lost 2 key captains on defense, Lucas Weber and Cameron Toomer. 2 guys on defense, and this defense already wasn't very good as it is. So I'd really love to fade Wyoming here because I think they're paper champions, but I may actually play Wyoming this week if the Chambers kid, because I don't see how Nevada stops that Wyoming run game, and I also don't see how Nevada scores.
So what happened with Malik Henry?
They basically they've said it's not a suspension, but it's also not like he's not on the team anymore, so he could focus on academics. They've been very careful to phrase this thing because they don't want everybody to think that he's been suspended, kicked off the team. Like, it's not a behavior thing, it's an academics thing.
Interesting. Okay, so does he have the chance to play the rest of the season, or no, he's out?
It looks like the rest of the year he is not going to play. But then again, I think things could change here with regards to that. But I think it looks like Malik Henry probably won't play the rest of the year so he can focus on academics.
Interesting stuff, Matt. Good stuff, man. We got Utah State at Air Force up next in the Mountain West. 58 the total. Looks like the Academy, Air Force, laying 3 or 3.5. Good one to shop around. Make sure you're getting the best number on this one.
Yeah, I'm mad at myself for not taking Air Force last week. I mean, look, Hawaii is all gloss and glitter, but like Air Force, most teams that go to Hawaii, they're partying, they're enjoying the sun. Air Force doesn't do that. They go, they get in, they kick your butt, and then they leave. They're not intimidated by anything. Who's going to play quarterback for Air Force? Mike Schmidt, the third stringer, came in, was pretty good running the triple option.
Good.
He is good. He won the Mountain West honor last week. I mean, I'm not worried so much about him. It's the question of Jordan Love also. Utah State's offense has been abysmal lately. Jordan Love last week, 13 of 31 for 169 yards. I mean, they beat Nevada. Clearly, they didn't need him to beat Nevada, but this offense just hasn't been that crisp lately. And without Jordan Love having his A game here, I'm worried about that. So I may look to Air Force in this one on Saturday.
All right, mid-major Matt, staying in the Mountain West here. 2 teams you've already mentioned before, Hawaii and New Mexico, squaring off in this one, 69.5 being the total, with the Rainbow Warriors laying 10 on the mainland.
So Hawaii's actually on a good pace. I have Hawaii win total. They won 4 of their first 5. It's funny. I don't understand why more people didn't look to Hawaii for their win total because they have a good team. Plus, they get the 13th game, and Vegas doesn't say that you can only have 12. So, to me, that's a not bad thing to have an extra game in your pocket. And I believe it was 5.5 was the total. With regards to this one, couple of key suspensions and injuries. Earlier in the week, Hawaii wide receiver, oh boy, I hope I don't botch this, Melquise Stovall is left the team. So he's one of the key wide receivers for Cole McDonald. New Mexico, just in the last day or two, suspended quarterback Sherion Jones because he got in trouble off the field. And so that means Tuioti is going to be under center. I mean, New Mexico is just brutal when it comes to offense last week. I mean, they didn't do anything against Wyoming to help me get the cover. Their defense made just enough stops, and the offense got a crucial touchdown in the fourth quarter to get the cover. New Mexico doesn't scare me. They've lost 4 straight, 5 of their last 6. I think Hawaii might be worth a look in this one if they can get Cole McDonald going a little bit.
I think so as well. And there are some 9.5 starting to show up. So maybe looking towards the away team at New Mexico. We got WKU and Marshall here in Conference USA, Matt. This is a good one. We got Marshall Thundering Herd laying 4.5 or 5, 44.5 the total. And Marshall coming off of that win over FAU. I took the loss on that, Matt. Didn't see that one coming. And Western Kentucky, man, their front 7, front 8. They can play some defense. How are you looking to get after this one?
Yeah, D'Angelo Malone's really good on that defensive line. This team's 22nd against the rush. I'm very happy because I also have a ticket on the over for Western Kentucky. They just need one more win to hit because, once again, that was another 5.5. I don't know if it's coming here, though. Marshall's one of those teams it's really hard to figure out. They've won their last 2. They got that nice win at Florida Atlantic last week, 36-31. The key is how's the quarterback going to play and how's this offense going to go, because we think the defense is pretty good. Although they did give up 31 to Ohio, they gave up 52 to Cincinnati. If Western Kentucky can keep this within a possession, I think they've got a shot in this one, because everybody thought once Stephen Duncan got hurt, their season was over. Ty Story comes in, the quarterback there. They've had some good offensive production there to go along with the really good defense. So I think Western Kentucky could be a live dog in this one, but it's a lot to ask for them to go to Marshall and win on Saturday.
Matt, in the Pac-12, we got Arizona at Stanford. Pretty much a pick-em price here. Some shops showing Arizona laying 1 in Palo Alto, 52.5 the total.
Oof. We've talked about injuries in this thing, and that's one of the things I'd like to bring up here in terms of information when it comes to this podcast is who's playing, who's not playing, who's questionable, and what's that going to do. Costello and Mills are both, as of the taping of this, they're like questionable. They're doing a little bit of work in practice. So Jack West, their third-string quarterback, could be coming in. They also lost their kicker. Best name in college football, Jet Toner, is the kicker for Stanford.
Nice. Yeah.
He is out for the season. They had 6 healthy offensive linemen last week. Arizona played without 2 starting offensive linemen last week. Khalil Tate wasn't great. He hasn't been great the past couple weeks. It's weird because you would think a guy like Kevin Sumlin could do some things with Khalil Tate, but, I mean, we just haven't seen it yet. The Gunnell kid behind him hasn't been very good, so they really have to stick with Tate. I mean, in theory, Arizona's worth a look here, but there's a reason why this line's not bigger, despite the fact that Stanford just is not healthy in a lot of places. Stanford hasn't looked good. They gave up 34 points to UCLA last week. Like, how does that even happen, considering how awful this Bruins offense has been? I don't know if Stanford has packed it in yet, but it's either Arizona or nothing for me.
Matt, staying in the Pac-12, we got Washington State at Oregon. Oregon playing back-to-back Washington schools here, this time at home, laying 2 touchdowns to the Pirate and the Cougs, 64.5 the total.
Brandon Schooler is transferring from Oregon. And he's only had 2 catches for 44 yards this year, and he's been a special teams guy, which is kind of important for them. It's not a big loss, but then again, I also want to see Juwan Johnson. Like, we expected a lot from the Johnson kid, and he hasn't produced to the level that we thought he has. Wazoo on the road lost really close to Arizona State. They lost at Utah. I don't know necessarily if I trust Washington State on the road, but Oregon also has a road trip to USC next, so focus could be an issue for the Ducks in this one.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys. Just a little mishap there with the internet, but should be good to go. We got Colorado State at Fresno State up next. This one, Mountain West action, 14 in the hook. That's Fresno State laying at home, 55.5 the total, Matt.
Colorado State healthy, coming off a bye week. E.J. Scott at wide receiver, coming off a 2-game suspension. That's a big thing. Nate Craig Myers is dealing with a concussion. Colorado State has 2 defensive guys who might be coming back, Manny Jones and Toby McBride. Fresno has to feel good. Look, they've had a bunch of middling weeks. They're picking up victories, But a couple weeks ago, they lost at Air Force, didn't look good doing it. Last week, they kind of flexed that muscle on Friday night, winning 56-27. I think Fresno's in a good spot right now, but I want to see it once again. They should be able to beat up on Colorado State, but I'm not going to play it. I want to see it first and then maybe come back to playing on Fresno State in a future matchup.
Matt, Missouri at Kentucky in the SEC East here, 10.5. That's Mizzou laying in Lexington, 44.5 the total.
I just want to say mid-major Matt's 5-1 in SEC plays this season. Go figure on that one. Missouri has to feel terrible after that game against Vanderbilt last week. I had the under in that game. I did not expect that kind of score. I thought that Vanderbilt was actually going to be the ones that struggled to score. They actually won the game. So Missouri's going to have the focus in this one. The Lynn Bowden experiment's been really good for one game, really bad. Like, there has to be some more wrinkles. Now, we don't know if Sawyer Smith's going to play. I've enjoyed playing unders in Kentucky games. This one, Vegas has started to figure that out. The odds makers have reduced the totals in Kentucky games because they know they've got a good defense and they know their offense can't do squat right now. So I'm watching the quarterback situation. Sawyer Smith, Lynn Bowden Jr., I think it's better for Bowden to be out at wide receiver, but Sawyer Smith still could be banged up a little bit. So we'll watch the quarterback situation. This one, hope that maybe the starter plays and the total goes up a point or two, and then we jump on the under.
And Matt, you brought up the fact, Missouri will be focused, and that's definitely an angle. But what about losing to Vanderbilt? In my opinion, power ratings wise, going into that game, Vanderbilt's the lowest power rating I've had for an SEC team in quite some time. Do you think that could actually be a question mark? Because when you look at Missouri's record, it's not bad, but they really haven't beaten anybody. They haven't played much at all, Matt. Does that worry you?
Well, yeah, of course. But they had a 5-game home stretch. Like, who plays 5 in a row? They actually played 3 in a row at home, had a bye, and then had 2 more in a row at home. I do believe in Kelly Bryant. He's a little dinged up. Of course, everybody in college football is dinged up nowadays. Missouri, in theory, has an offense that should be able to score some points in this one. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a road game. Kentucky's actually getting decent crowds. The question is, how many 3-and-outs in a row is Kentucky going to have? Is their defense going to get tired trying to chase around Missouri's offense?
Mid-major Matt, we got a rivalry game up next. Duke at North Carolina, 3.5. The Tar Heels laying in Chapel Hill, 53.5 the total.
So normally in this situation, I'd want to fade North Carolina after last week. 6 overtimes against Tech, a game that was highly emotional, highly tiring. We finally found out about the 5 overtime rule, which is great. I don't mind the 2-point conversion thing. It's bad for people who maybe still have an over in play that late in a game. Of course, you'd really have to have some things going against you in that situation. But I don't know if I could play here. I liked Duke last week to some extent against UVA. They played terrible. This is a very hard Duke team to figure out. I keep going back to, are they the ones that won at Virginia Tech by a lot? Or are they the ones that laid a massive egg against Virginia? They lost at home to Pittsburgh. Duke theoretically has the better team in this one, but I just can't bet them right now. They're too Jekyll and Hyde, and so I'm looking at North Carolina here, but I'm also worried about how much they have left in the tank after last week, and I'm not a huge Tar Heel guy. I've got an under ticket on them for the win total. I hope they lose here, but I don't know if I can bet Duke in this one.
And Matt, the new overtime rule that starts in overtime 5, they go for 2 each team, just back and forth, correct?
Pretty much. They just go back and forth, and each team goes for 2. And then if you miss, the next team goes for 2. And if they miss, then you go to the 6th overtime. And then I don't know if there's like a 15th overtime. You play like a hockey shootout or something like that. But, yeah, we saw that. It was fun to watch. It's a very stressful thing if you're rooting for one of the teams, though.
And for totals purposes, does the 2-point conversion starting in overtime, I guess, number 5, does that count as 2 points or would it count as a touchdown?
No, it counts as 2 points. So they kept it. That's why Tech won 43-41. I guess it's a good thing if you want to inch your way up there for the total. And it's good to know if you get to the 5th overtime and you're holding a +6 ticket, you're guaranteed to win because, the only team that can win is by 2 points.
Yeah, unique situations, but it will definitely happen again in the future. So those who are holding a ticket in that situation, be glad they know the rules listening to the podcast. We got Big Ten action up next. Penn State at Michigan State, mid-major Matt. We got 6.5. It's Penn State laying on the road. 44.5 the total. Michigan State off a bye. D'Antoni, but I mean, how much does that help them? Their offense hasn't done much. You'd think that their defense would hold pretty good here. It makes me look towards the under. Have questions about this Penn State quarterback, man. Is he good? Is he not? I'm not really sure. Spot-wise favors Michigan State. but I feel like Penn State's got the talent. How do you feel?
Well, I think you said it. I mean, obviously, this is not my forte, so I can only give you some information. But as you said, good spot for Michigan State. They've got the weird bye game and then another bye next week. I'm guessing that they're working on their offense. Their offense hasn't been very good. Penn State coming off the win over Michigan. In theory, they might have lost that game if the Bell kid catches the touchdown in the end zone. I like what Penn State's doing, but coming off a whiteout, all the emotion of a night game at Happy Valley, I don't know if I can back them here against a rested Michigan State team. I'm not going to play this game. I'm not the expert to ask you, and all the rest of the guys on the websites are better to do this. But spot-wise, it looks like Michigan State would be the play to me.
All right, Matt, let's get back into your comfort zone here. We got Maction and then 2 Sun Belt games to finish off this section of the Every Game on the Board podcast. Miami, and that's speaking Miami of Ohio at Kent State here. Looks like 1.5. That's Kent State laying at home. 58 the total, Matt.
Kent State's offense is starting to come alive, and it's with the Crum kid at quarterback. Everybody kind of thought that Barrett would be the guy to make this offense go, but if you look the last 2 weeks, 38 at Ohio, 26 at Akron. They scored 62 at home against Bowling Green. They've got the offense. The question is, can they play any defense? They gave up 45 to Ohio, 48 to Wisconsin, 55 to Auburn, 30 at Arizona State. Their defense isn't very good. Miami's offense, I don't know. Miami's offense, they won a game at home against Northern Illinois last week, which is a bit of a surprise for me because I kind of like Northern Illinois, and that's after a game where they figured out that they have an offense. I probably won't play this game, but I don't hate Kent State at home in a game where they could probably score on Miami of Ohio. If they make a stop or two, then they become an even better play. Maybe the over in this one, but Kent State starting to play better football right now.
Matt, we got App State at South Alabama. We got 25.5. That's USA catching at home. 52 the total in Mobile.
Oh man, I can't deal with South Alabama anymore. These Tuesday night Maction game or Sun Belt games with South Alabama. I've been a guy in the past who has defended Cephas Johnson, but he just looks lost out there. He's got all the talent in the world, but I don't know what it is. It's not translating over to the field. This is a team that lost to Troy 37-13. Thank goodness, because I had the under in that game. And they basically just handed it off, and then they had a fumble. They just looked really awful. Appalachian State steamrolling everybody, 52-7, 17-7, of course, against Louisiana in the big rivalry game, 56-37. They're scoring points on pretty much everybody. The look-ahead factor here is this, and this is the reason why you don't just run to the window on App State. 5 days later at home against Georgia Southern to prep for the triple option. We'll get to that next. App State maybe in the first half is worth a look here, thinking that they're going to come out, they're going to steamroll things. Maybe they pull off the reins a little bit in the second half. So App State game is a little shaky, but App State first half might be the way to go here.
Good look there on the first half. I do agree with you because short week and then you play your rival. And by the way, this goes back more than just the Sun Belt. These two teams made the transition from FCS to FBS together, and they were rivals back in their FCS. Was it the Southern Conference, Matt?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, and talking about Georgia Southern here. Next game up, last game for the segment. And guys, remember the coupon code MMM29 at checkout for Mid-Major Matt's 3-day all-access pass at sportsmemo.com. You can just next 3 days, every play he releases in every sport. That's college football. Don't forget college basketball right around the corner, and that's his specialty as well. So MMM29 at checkout, 3-day all-access sportsmemo.com. Last game for this section, then we'll bring Robbie Vino in. New Mexico State at Georgia Southern. Not an easy travel spot here. What I'm guessing fly into Atlanta, then bus down to Statesboro. Either way, 56 being the total, 14 in the hook. Georgia Southern laying at home.
By the way, just in case anybody's wondering, the reason why I'm looking down is because I have my Phil Steele with all my results written down. That's the only reason why I'm looking down all the time. Just in case anybody was wondering. Full disclosure here to everybody paying attention. As I said, I've watched Georgia Southern a couple times this year. They run the triple option, but they don't run it very well. I mean, if you look at their offense, they don't throw it very well. They don't throw it very often. Much like Army, Navy, and Air Force, they break off a couple of runs here and there, but they don't do it very frequently. Losing the losing the King running back. He's one of those guys that's a game breaker type, and so they don't run the triple option very well. But here's the thing: New Mexico State is awful. They are coming off a bye week, so they've had the extra time to prepare for the triple option. They've probably seen it before, but you look at the results here. I mean, they haven't shown a pulse too often other than the New Mexico game on September 21st when they lost 55-52. So, I would love to, in a lot of situations, a team coming off a bye week with 2 weeks to prepare for a triple option that's not even run very well, I would normally look to that team. But, man, New Mexico State is just so awful. That's asking a lot for a team. And as you described, the travel is probably really tough on them. So this is a no-play situation for me. Maybe you look at the over, but then again, if New Mexico State plays the triple option really well, New Mexico State's offense isn't great. So I think you just sit this game out. As I've said on all the podcasts, you don't have to play every game. That's our angle, as Drew likes to add, that's our angle. We don't have to play every game, and this is probably one you shouldn't look at.
Good stuff, as always. Mid-Major Matt. Follow him on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt, and the coupon code MMM29 at checkout for his 3-day all-access pass. Want to throw anything out before we shut this section down, Matt?
No, I know it's exciting times. I started doing my college basketball research, trying to find teams to back. There's a bunch of games on that first day, and also FCS football. There's a couple of interesting matchups that I'm looking at, so you could certainly find those on Saturday. We've got a winning record in those games. JMU has been on the card as of late. They've got an interesting game on Saturday, so just looking forward to it. We're hitting our stride a little bit now here in October, so if you want to come along for the ride, I'll always appreciate it.
All right, guys, we will take a break here, and Robbie Vino will be back on tomorrow's podcast, as well as Teddy Covers, finishing up the college football every game on the board podcast. Until next time, best of luck with your bets.